Stop! You haven't subscribed to the channel yet? Subscribe now! We have new stories every day. Now let's go! I'm Jake Pierce, age 35, and this is my story. For 6 years, I was happily married to my stunning wife, Alyssa. At 31, she looked like someone in her mid-20s. Despite the strong bond we shared, we never had children. I was eager to start a family, but she kept saying, soon, asking me to wait. Our intimacy was remarkable, not just the physical side, but her tender kisses and hugs, which I cherished most. I looked for every chance to be close to her, simply so I could hold her in my arms and feel at peace. She always seemed responsive and caring, and I believed she loved me as much as I loved her. My mistake was trusting her too much. Her name was Alyssa, and my love for her twisted into hatred, that hollow indifference. Some say the opposite of love is indifference. For me, it was an icy rage that burned my soul to cinders. I doubt I'll ever recover. If the whole world were on fire, I wouldn't bother putting it out. Not for her, anyway. You might be asking how a once-loving man could become so consumed by vengeance. It began at last year's company Christmas party. Alyssa tended to dress provocatively for these events, drawing every man's eye. At first, I liked the fact that the most desired woman in the room was mine, but I couldn't help wondering whose attention she wanted to snag. Usually, I'm not the jealous type, but what's mine is mine, as the saying goes. I told Alyssa before we left that a lot of men would hit on her and that I trusted her to handle it without disrespecting herself or me. I'm not a man who tolerates disrespect. My martial arts buddies call me the Crusher for a reason. Alyssa never saw that side of me, and I prayed she never would. I had a sinking feeling before we left the house, like a premonition. Alyssa, smiling, why the sad face, Jake? Don't you want to go to the party? That smile always made my body react. Me, honestly, babe, I'd rather skip the party this year. Alyssa, why? You usually have fun. Don't be a party pooper. We barely go dancing, and I really need a night out. I'm almost ready. Let's go. Her tone was a bit impatient. Then she said, Alyssa, come here first and let me take care of that problem in your pants. I can't have my man walking around with a, well, you know. I had no idea that would be our last sexual moment. Alyssa, wow, that was great, babe. I love you so much. Let me take care of you too. Me, if you do, we'll never get to the party. Alyssa, exactly. So let me finish my makeup. We're going. I still looked uneasy, so she asked, Alyssa, didn't I satisfy you, honey? Something's still on your mind. She seemed way too excited about this party. Me, last year's party got out of hand. Too many drunks, people grabbing each other. It was stupid. Plus, Brian Carter recently made VP hits on every woman in the office. There's a rumor he slept with half of them. I almost decked him last year. Didn't like the way he kept buzzing around you or dancing with you. Brian was the president's nephew, a pompous guy who thought the sun rose and set on his command. He was married with 2 kids. I felt sorry for his wife, who deserved better. She'd stopped coming to office parties because of his behavior. She was classy and beautiful, so I couldn't fathom why she stayed with him. Alyssa, he's just a big flirt, Jake. I can handle him. Don't forget, I'm proud to be your woman. I love you more than life. He may be tall, rich, and handsome, but he'll never compare to you. I shrugged it off. Alyssa had never given me a reason to doubt her, and love really can blind you. We headed to the party, arriving a bit late. People were already tipsy, dancing and laughing. I decided to blend in, hoping the night would end quickly so we could go home and be together. As soon as we walked in, Brian Carter came straight over and gave me a limp handshake, then practically devoured Alyssa with his eyes. He lifted her hand, kissed it, and ignored me completely. My head throbbed with anger, but Alyssa gave me a quick wink, as if to say, relaxed, it's fine, so I let it slide. Before long, Brian took Alyssa by the arm. She didn't object and said, Brian, grinning, let me introduce you to some new staff. Brian, you don't mind, right, Jake? He can wait for my answer. Alyssa gave me a keep cool look, and I allowed it. My good friend Ethan saw what was happening and pulled me over to hang out with a group of guys telling tall tales and playing drinking games, while their wives chatted elsewhere. I pretended to drink, never enough to lose my edge. I glimpsed Alyssa dancing with a couple of men, which seemed harmless at first. A while later, I realized I was tired and ready to head home. It had been a couple of days since we last made love, and I wanted her all to myself. She'd had her fun, so now I was eager to go. I searched for her and couldn't find her anywhere. That's when Tracy, Alyssa's friend, said she'd last seen Alyssa dancing with Brian about 15 minutes ago. My gut churned. I checked beyond the ballroom, down some halls. I heard voices near a small, seldom-used conference room. I recognized a woman's moans of pleasure, and it sounded exactly like Alyssa. My heart pounded as I pushed the door open. There she was, bent over a chair, being taken by Brian Carter. I froze in shock, like my body stopped working. They were too involved to notice me at first. I slowly walked closer, and suddenly Alyssa spotted me. Alyssa, panicked. Oh my God, Jake, this isn't what it looks like. She tried to cover herself, but it was obviously exactly what it looked like. Me, you have nothing to say to me, you lying. I worshipped you. This is how you repay me? We're done. You're no longer my wife. I grabbed a handful of her hair, forcing her to look me in the eyes. Me, look, what do you see? These aren't the eyes of the man who loves you anymore. You destroyed everything tonight. Now I see why you insisted on coming here, so you could sneak around with this dirtbag. She was hysterical. I didn't let her speak. Just then, 3 of my buddies, Ethan, Miles, and Adam, walked in, probably alerted by Tracy. They stood there frozen, unsure what to do. I turned to Brian. "Nee, you worthless piece of garbage. I should kill you right now." Brian sneered. "Brian, try it, and I'll have you arrested. My uncle will fire you. Besides, I've had your wife many times. You think you scare me?" Anger flared inside me, but I forced myself not to kill him. Instead, I decided I'd ruin his life, not end it. If he wanted to fight, I was ready. I'm not a tall guy, but I never lost a scrap. Brian had no clue what he was in for. Seeing the woman I loved more than life itself stand there, exposed and guilty, ripped my heart out. But spending the rest of my days in prison for murdering Brian wasn't worth it. I promised him retribution anyway. Me, you disrespected me, so now your life is mine. You'll regret this night. I'll see you divorced and disgraced. I'll sue for alienation of affection. I'll sue your company for misconduct. I'll be rich and you'll be ruined. You messed with the wrong man. My voice sounded murderous even to me. Suddenly, 2 cops showed up. Brian started yelling. "Brian, he attacked me. Arrest him. He's insane." But Ethan spoke up. "Ethan, officer, Brian attacked Jake first. Jake was defending himself after catching him with Jake's wife." Miles and Adam backed the story. Brian pleaded with the police. "Brian, they're lying. He beat me senseless for no reason." One officer eyed Alyssa. Officer to Alyssa. "Ma'am, did you see what happened?" She stood there in shock, crying and speechless. Me? To the cops. "I want him out of my sight. If he wants charges, so do I, for assault. Lock him up." The police seemed sympathetic to me. Brian was cuffed, still yelling. Officer whispering to me. "If you need anything, call the station and ask for Sergeant Jones. I've been there too." I nodded gratefully. My 3 friends left to give me space, each expressing silent condolences. Now it was just me and Alyssa. I picked up her discarded panties and shoved them in my pocket. She seemed terrified of what might happen next. Inside, I felt utterly broken, like part of me had died, but rage numbed me. I looked at the woman I'd once have died for and realized I didn't even know her. I forced myself to keep the anger. It was the only thing holding my grief in check. Me, get your coat and come to the car now. I spun around and walked out, not wanting her to see the raw pain on my face. In the car, my silence said everything. Alyssa, voice trembling. "Jake, are we going home?" Me, "We don't have a home anymore. You destroyed it when you broke our marriage vows." Her tears flowed. Alyssa, "Jake, please, is there any way you can forgive me? I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'm so sorry." Me, "You think I can ever unsee what happened tonight or ignore him telling me how many times he's had you? You gave yourself to him. What was mine to give? That was no accident. You did it on purpose. You ended our marriage the moment you let him in." Alyssa, "I swear I love you. I just got caught up in something I shouldn't have done. It was a game, a thrill. He's not you, Jake. He'll never measure up to you." She sobbed, pleading, but I was beyond reason. I pulled up in front of a well-kept suburban house. She looked confused. Alyssa, "Where are we?" Me, "Get out." Alyssa, "What?" Jake, "What are you doing?" Me, "Get out." She followed me to the door. A woman answered. Woman, "Yes. Can I help you?" Me, "Mrs. Carter, I'm Jake Pierce. I used to work for your husband's company. May I come in?" Mrs. Carter, "Is Brian okay? What's going on?" I marched in, dragging Alyssa by the arm. Me, to Mrs. Carter, "This won't take long. My wife has something to tell you." Mrs. Carter, sternly, "I'm listening." I squeezed Alyssa's arm. Me, "Tell her." Alyssa's lips quivered. Alyssa, I, your husband and I, Brian and I, we're caught having sex tonight at the Christmas party. Me, "Tell her how long." Alyssa, 4 years, on and off, whenever we could sneak away. Mrs. Carter's face went from enraged to heartbreak, then back to fury. She slapped Alyssa hard, sending her reeling. Mrs. Carter, "Get out of my house. Once I divorce that worthless man, you can keep him." Brian was definitely in for a brutal confrontation when he got out of jail. As for Alyssa and me, we're effectively finished. I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. We drove to her sister's place. She kept sobbing. Alyssa, "Jake, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. anything to fix this. I stayed stone-faced, arriving at her sister's. Me, we will divorce. The house gets sold, and I'll take 70% of the equity. We split our investments 50-50 and keep our own pensions. If you don't fight it, I will use adultery as grounds, even though at least a dozen people can testify. I'll also withhold all the evidence I have, like your underwear from the scene, so you won't be publicly humiliated any more than necessary. If you choose to contest, I'll bury you legally and personally. It's your call. She looked beaten, tears streaming. Alyssa, Jake, please, I have nothing left. I am begging, but I cut her off. Me? You might still love me, but that means nothing now. You were selfish and cruel. Maybe I overlooked certain red flags, but not anymore. You'll have to live with the remorse for the rest of your life. We stopped in front of her sister's house. Me, you'll be at the legal documents soon. Stay away from the house until noon tomorrow. I'll be gone by then. I'll get the rest of my things when you're not around. We're done, Alyssa. 6 years wiped out in one night. Goodbye. Through our tears, I pulled out her panties and handed them over. Me, take these with you. She stepped out of the car, both of us weeping. I drove away, my heart shredded, but my mind made up. To anyone who stayed until the end of this story, thank you. If you can, please click subscribe. It would mean a lot.